It's the select board meeting on May 28th, 2019, not 1919, but 2019. We'd all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have no public hearing scheduled this evening. We do have a presentation. Jean Lawrence.
I'd like to thank the Select Board for allowing this presentation to be made tonight. When you run a nonprofit organization, as most of you are in this room know, the tiniest little thing that is done is welcomed with great appreciation. And so therefore, when someone gives over 500 hours of volunteer service in a year's time, that's really pretty important. Tonight, I would like to present the Maine Volunteer Roll of Honor Certificate to a member of our community. His name is Roy Hatch, and he's shaking his head. Roy, I don't know if you know this or not, Roy makes a pretty good pot of coffee. He also can bake a sheet cake and frost it. He has influence on his wife to create really good baked macaroni and cheese when you have a potluck supper. He can swing like a monkey when he and Bill decide that they're going to put up signs in the barn. Most of the time, I'm not there, and it's just as well. And other times when I have been there, I just close my eyes and go in the other building. They have put up a tremendous amount of signs. He is a man who has helped to sand and recoat the cement floor in the Hout Bailey building. They spent a lot of hours. And when the floods came this winter, from the snow and the water that runs down the road, he was the one that went and got a sump pump, dug a hole, put it in the hole, and got the water out before it endangered the artifacts in the Bailey section of the building. He is a carpenter. His skills are amazing. He has built handicapped parking signs for us. He has created a drop box, which allows people to leave things at the museum. They can put them in. They don't necessarily come out. And that is really a big help. And he has created some of the loveliest exhibition cases for us. One in particular for the Genthner exhibit, and it's really quite lovely. And he's there whenever he's needed. When Carol got sick, he said, "I'll help with the minutes." When Bill says it's time to pick up the chairs, he picks up the chairs. And he's just a big, big help. And so, Roy, if you would come up, I would like to read this to you. It says, Roy Hatch is inscribed on the 2019 Roll of Honor in recognition of 525 hours of volunteer service through the Waldoboro Historical Society. And you never know when you nominate someone whether they will be accepted or not. This is an entire state that it covers. And this is your pin. And we really, really appreciate all that you have done. And if you'll bend down and pick up that pink bow. That's not for you.
Thank you very much.
That's for your wife, for lending you to
Oh.
us, okay? Thank you.
Thank you very
And
much,
thank you
Dave.
very much.
Well, I have the distinct pleasure to make another presentation. I got to know Becky.
Mouth is open and just drop.
Surprised? Good. You did it. This is- He got you here, and Eileen got you here. Not an easy thing to do, to pull something over on you. I got to know Becky shortly after I arrived in Waldoboro, about 15 years ago. And I would come to the meetings, and this room would be empty. Me and her except the select board. So I'd come and sit and learn and watch, had to get to know the town. And about 9 months after that, I was up there at that crematorium making arrangements for my mother. And you popped up and you said, "Why don't you run for the select board?" And I said, "Are you crazy? I've only been here 9 months." But you were the, I guess, the instigator, if you will. You welcome people to this town and make them feel at home. And I'll never forget that. So it means a lot to me to make this presentation to you. I'm going to read it. It's entitled Dedication, Rebecca Becky Maxwell, by Jean Lawrence, who just happens to be an amazing lady. The Waldoboro Select Board has chosen one of their own to be honored with the Town Report dedication this year. Rebecca Becky Maxwell was born on Gross Neck, the daughter of Marguerite Pryor and Ernest Burse. The descendant of Conrad Heyer, Waldoboro's first German child born in town. Becky's line comes from her grandfather, Harvey Simmons. I guess that's the connection. Becky graduated from Waldoboro High School class of '58 and has lived in Waldoboro all her life. Married to Charles Maxwell for 40 years before his death, she is the mother of a daughter, Justine, and a son, William, and grandmother to 2 grandsons, Derek and Daniel. Following her graduation, Becky worked at the Custom House in the office of former U.S. Senator and Maine Governor Fred Payne, and 1 year at the Sylvania plant. She then became secretary and billing clerk for 10 years in the office of Dr. Richard Waterman until he retired. For 8 years, she was employed at the Denison Nursing Home until it closed and she and the patients moved to Fieldcrest. She served as a clerk in the deerskin shop before she ran for position of town clerk and was elected in 1987. Becky saw this position as an opportunity to try her hand at something new and listed as her qualifications liking people, especially the elderly, liking to talk, and enjoying keeping records for posterity. She was instrumental in establishing regular hours for the clerk at the municipal building. Though she had many experiences performing marriages, issuing licenses, and signing certificates from her home, moving to the town office made the clerk's services more available to the citizens. While serving as clerk, Becky took classes offered by the Maine Municipal Association in Augusta, learned her skills on the job, and by picking the brains of other town clerks. Serving as town clerk from 1987-2002 did not end her service to the town. She ran and was elected selectman from 2004 to 2008 and served on the Budget Committee 2010 to 2012. In keeping with her interest in history, Becky joined the Ladies Auxiliary of the German Protestant Society in 1977 and has served as its president since 1985. The group is instrumental in keeping the German church open for visitors in the summer and holding the annual service and outdoor reception each first Sunday in August. She also serves as a member of the Board of Trustees of the Old German Church and an honorary member of the Waldoboro Historical Society. Becky was a member of Good Luck Rebecca Lodge, where she served as Noble Grand. Becky is a member of the Waldoboro Women's Club and served a term as president in 1989. She joined the Sol Schumann Veterans of Foreign War Auxiliary in the late 1980s and has served in various positions in that group. She was unanimously elected and honored as Grand Marshal of the Waldoboro Day Parade when she retired from her position as town clerk. She is a member of the North Nobleboro Baptist Church. In June 2019, during Waldoboro Historical Society's 50th anniversary, she was named to the list of Waldoboro's top 50 citizens, past or present, with 14% of the votes. She was also a member of the Madomic Valley Boosters Club. Daughter, wife, mother, working professional, and volunteer, all are some of the hats that Becky has worn over the years. Her love of people and her town are apparent as she recollects experiences in which she has been involved. A wise local man once urged his fellow Waldoboro citizens to honor people who do good service while they are living. Rebecca Maxwell certainly has given her lifetime of talents and love to her hometown for many years. She deserves the honor given by the citizen representatives of Waldoboro through this dedication.
You should all get a picture with her.
Nice. Can we do it now?
Yeah, you should.
Can we stand and get a picture with Becky?
You should. You don't mind taking that, do you, Alex? I try to get Eileen in there, but she'll smack me. But you'll get a picture of all of them.
Yes.
Why don't everybody gather around her?
Why don't
we go to her?
We're gonna do it from here.
Probably this way maybe, so we can get all of us fitting in.
You have someone on the other side.
Yes.
Is that right?
One, two, three. Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I have a redo over, please? I wasn't smiling.
No,
I left my card.
Yeah, it's okay.
You can do it at another. Okay. It'll keep. It's just from one for training.
Never.
I don't know how to say it, I'm sorry. Never.
That's why I said see you Wednesday.
Well, that's what Larry always said.
I always say see you Wednesday.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry.
We've all three of them know. Nobody said it.
Yeah, that happens.
Becky's lost for words.
You leaving?
Yes, I'll take it first. Don't forget her flowers.
Don't forget her flowers, Billy.
Kendall's got the flowers.
Thank you, Becky. Thank you, Becky.
Thank you
all of you.
Is that his, that's his wife, the next one?
Yes, I believe so.
And the others that are looking to read half the crowd, Judy, we got that.
Yeah, that's happening.
I've seen him, but I don't know who he is.
Did you get to go to the parade last night?
I did.
You did?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I said it was a beautiful day, nice breeze there right by the bridge.
Oh, yeah. Did you see the girl throwing the thing?
I
She
did.
went like this.
I don't know.
Are you related in any way to Roy?
No. I used to work at BIW when he was there, and that's how I got to know him. But my maiden name is Hadge.
Yeah, that's.
So every time I see Laura in the store, hi, Mrs. Hadge. No, there's no relation.
Susan Mayer. I'll give her a second.
Hi, John. Hi, John. Hi, John.
Made it 15 minutes earlier, Susan. We thought you wouldn't be here till
I thought I was
6:30.
15 minutes late. I'm glad you think I'm 15 minutes early. That's very nice of you. Excuse me, I apologize.
Yeah, we're good. I guess we had our adjustment to the agenda with that photo session. So is there any other adjustments to the agenda? Okay. Citizen comments. Yes, ma'am.
Kathy Osborne here. I am often here as a representative of Broad Bay Church, and tonight is no exception. Two things are on my mind. One is that we're gonna have a party at the church on the side lawn like we did last fall on June 22nd. It's the week after Waldeboro Day, that's Saturday. I've got my permit in for mass gathering to the town planner. I'm assuming that's been disseminated appropriately, but I'm hoping to ask the board to close Pleasant Avenue between Main Street and Marble Avenue just for 3 hours from 12 noon to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so that we can spill out onto the street with children like we did last year. It was really successful last year when we had a bounce house, but everything that was on the street was easily movable, so that if anything had to happen, we could, swoosh out of the way really easily. But it just creates such a safe space for kids to be. So that's my request, is that you take that under consideration and let us know whether or not we can close the street for those 3 hours on June 22nd. And the second thing, Nancy Duncan, who's a pastor there, asked me to give you an update on our project. We are moving forward in a really positive way. I'm on the building committee now. We've hired a construction manager, we have the architect on board, we've got our drawing plans for building, we are submitted the grant application to the major grant funder that's hopefully gonna give us the full $250,000. We have another grant into the Steeples Foundation for a significant grant there that's gonna, if that comes in, we'll top over our $500,000 goal, so we're really excited. And we think we will be, by July 1st, breaking ground and renovating the steeple, getting the steeple straight, and putting a lift in, and renovating bathrooms, and making that space safer for public access. So we're excited.
Good for you. Good.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
For the closing of Pleasant Street, last year, we asked that you notify your neighbors
Yes.
that would be affected. So if you could just do that and then put a letter in, we can take that up at our next meeting.
I will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a wonderful affair. I watched a 90-some-year-old woman go into the jump house and jump.
It says.
Mrs. Sproul, Elizabeth Sproul. Someone said they'd donate money if she did it, and she said, I want. It actually was really fun.
It was fun.
It was, cornhole was in the road. It was like that. It was a really lovely, community event. And it was a nice day, and the food was
Good.
everything was good. Everything was good. Mrs. Sproul kind of made the day. As always.
Any other citizen comments? Okay, we'll move on to select board comments. Katie?
I would just like to thank everybody for yesterday's Memorial Day event and ceremony down by the parade and the event down by the monument. It was a wonderful day. It went off without a hitch. Everybody was pleased, especially the singers. The three, they called it the Tolley sisters. And they were just fabulous. But anyways, it was a good day. And thank you to everybody that participated.
I just wanted to piggyback that. I was gonna talk about that too. It was an excellent day down there. There was just it was a nice breeze, and the girls really brought it out, I thought.
Yes,
And
yes.
it always used to seem like Memorial Day was rain all the time. It
We've
was
been
nice
lucky
to have a
the
good day.
past 3
Yeah.
years. It's
Yeah.
been really good.
Good job to all those involved.
Yes, excellent. Next year, we're gonna have a flyover, go right down the river with an afterburner. Wouldn't that be something?
That would be something.
Almost set.
Okay, Jan?
I thought the weather was wonderful. It was perfect for the event. That was very nice. I'd just like to say, I think the flags look very nice. They're up, and I've heard lots of comments. Clint and I were on the committee to get that started, and it was just nice I think it was last week, they went up. And they look really nice and festive, and they looked so nice yesterday, the ceremony. That was very nice. The other Art Walk is starting in June. June 8th is the first Art Walk for Waldoboro. So the second Saturday of every month, June through October. I think there are maybe 13 businesses who are involved in Art Walk. I just got the material, but I haven't had a chance to read and look to see, but I think it's 13.
Okay, I have a couple of things I need to cover. One is there's a WBA meeting tomorrow evening. The public's invited, of course. It'll be at the First. They're going to discuss MSAD 40. Danny Jackson will be there, and the brown-tailed moth will be discussed as well. We're having a TIF hearing in this room on May 30th at 6 in the evening. I hope people can come to that. TIF is really important. It's kind of covered by the slogan, Waldoboro Works. This is a slogan that the Economic Development Committee came up with. And for those of you who don't recall, TIF means tax incremental financing. It's a complicated phrase, but not a very complicated concept. We set up a district in town. It can't comprise more than 2% of all the land in Waldoboro. The district that's been set up is primarily along the Route 1 corridor and axis. Properties in that district are TIF properties, which means that improvements to those properties increase the tax valuation. It's the increase in tax valuation and the taxes on that increase in valuation that are deposited into the special fund. And it's a way that the town has to save money for future infrastructure projects. If we don't start doing that, we're gonna always be playing catch-up when we need to do something infrastructure-wise in town, like extend the sewer or the water, or do broadband, or put in trails, or do improved sidewalks in the village. The advantage of the TIF is that you can use that funding that the town has saved to leverage grant money. So say you have $200,000 in your TIF, you can raise as much as $1 million more on top of that in grant money. You leverage it. And other towns have been doing this for a long time. If we'd done this 15 years ago, we'd have money in our TIF and be able to do things in Waldoboro that we can't do now because we didn't save. So this is an opportunity. I hope you give it close thought and consideration. We do have candidates night here Thursday night, starting at 7. Again, congratulations to Katie and her group on that Memorial Day parade. It was really nice. There's a great article in the Outdoors Lincoln County Magazine just about Cider Hill and disc golf. If you take Lincoln County News, you might see that in your paper. It's really interesting. It's a very nice write-up about Cider Hill and Waldoboro. And I can say with confidence now that in fact we will have a used bookstore on Friendship Street. The Midcoast Conservancy and the library are going to share some space thanks to the generosity of Midcoast Conservancy at that location, so that the bookstore will take up half of the ground floor of that building. And the hope is to have it up and running by the end of June. We thought maybe by Waldoboro Day, but that's not going to happen. That's too soon. But maybe by the end of June. And one other thing I'd like to do is I'm not going to read it, but Ron Phillips gave some testimony on LD 1711 in Augusta, and I'd like to have that become part of the record of tonight's meeting, and I can give a copy of it to Susan for inclusion in the minutes. And that's all I had. Town manager's report.
The marijuana moratorium, we were under the impression June 12th, or June 11th.
June 11th.
Max cannot be here that night. He's working the polls. So it'll have to be June 25th.
Okay.
So
It is what it is.
it is
Yeah.
what it is, yes. Also, the property maintenance ordinance, I just need guidance on when and if to schedule that. The RFP for engineering for the landing improvements at Dutch Neck are due on the 31st. As you noticed tonight, the town report arrived, and it's beautiful. And I just want to give a lot of credit to Tanya Blodgett, who's a new employee of like 2 months, and this is the first project I gave her, and she did awesome. I think it's actually
beautiful.
It's beautiful, and I want to give a shout out to Kyle Sanderson, who provided a lot of the photographs. So, very proud of that report, I have to say, and she did a great job. So if you see her, thank her. And that's all I have.
On the maintenance ordinance, do we want to just briefly talk about when we might ask Julie to put that on the agenda? Do we want it June 11th, June 25th, in July? What's your,
Did you want to have a workshop to discuss it, so that
that's a
we,
good idea.
have an idea of what it is and what we would like it to be?
I like that idea. Everybody okay with that?
Mhm.
Okay. We'll get it on one of the agendas then, coming forward. Consent calendar.
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion about the consent calendar? All in favor?
I'm abstaining, though. I'm abstaining.
You're abstaining. Abden's abstaining.
You in here?
Yeah, no, he had to recuse himself.
I do have to add one thing to this. We do have, just so we're clear, I talked to the auditor about this, and he said it was an accounting issue, but we do have to write off $7,373.30 for the 41 Beach Ridge Road property. That would be a write-off. The auditor guidance, because I wasn't sure if it should be a resolution or not, was it's just an accounting mechanism. But Rose, right before I came in, said no. In the past, it's always been done like this. So I'm stuck between what the auditor's telling me and in the past. So I am doing this as this will be the last time we do this, because I'm getting guidance from the auditor. So from here on out, that's who the guidance comes from when something has to be done like this. It's an accounting issue. It's not something you vote on. You already voted on this when you accepted the sale. But I'm trying to break a cycle here of we've always done it that way. Doesn't mean it's the right way to do it. So I'm trying, and I just want you to be aware, so you'll never see this again, but this is why, because I have written guidance from the auditor as to how it's supposed to be done.
What was that amount again?
73.30. So I
And
just.
it's all in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles.
Correct.
So,
So but I understand that it's always been done, but it doesn't mean that that's the proper way to do it. So
thank you.
I'm letting everybody know so that from here on, we're moving forward.
Any other I think we voted on it, so. we're
You
good.
voted on it.
New business, the community forum results.
In your packets, you all had the 2-page executive summary. I don't know how in-depth you want me to get with this tonight.
It's up to you.
So we had 5 major questions. I'll just go through it like this. Seeking greater community impact. What are the critical social issues or pressing problems facing our community at this time or over the next 5 years? So just to give everybody in TV land a flavor, it was poverty, drug and alcohol abuse, education, jobs, and communication. Question 2, what is needed in our greater community if we want to be game changers in healthy living? And those answers were essentially a community center, healthcare, senior services, nutrition, drug and alcohol abuse awareness. Question 3, addressing priorities. What might we do in partnership to address key community issues of poverty, drug abuse, food security? Again, also unemployment, underemployment, and affordable housing. Poverty, we need to provide services, transportation, education, and there is a lack of health care. Substance abuse, provide access to treatment, education of youth, create groups, create alternatives for drug and alcohol use, and provide summer programs not sport-related. Food security, partner with the school, food banks, teach people to farm, cook, implement Meals on Wheels, food co-op, community gardens. Employment, attract businesses, create pathways to trades and job creation. Housing, create affordable, safe housing, age in place assistance, create housing coalitions, promote intergenerational living and inventory of homelessness and shelters. And advocacy, public education of problems, culture change, identify and engage with those in need. Question number 4 was, what other ways might key partners or organizations play a greater role in strengthening our community? And the number 1 thing was communication. We need a directory of services, regular meetings of partners, outreach to those in need, better social media and website. Partnerships, YMCA, Lincoln Health, FISH, Mid-Coast Community Action, CHIP. And coordination, it's trying to find the right resources to the right people. And finally, what were our assets in our community and how might we leverage those assets to address the issues discussed today? And our assets were the Downtown Center, the Artist Community, Waldo Theater, Historical Society, 80 Gray. You could go either way on that one. Library, VFW and American Legion, and needing to make the downtown the hub. The Mondomic River, obviously the fishing industry, recreation and landings are an asset. Town services, public safety, recreation program, and continuity and leadership. Schools, Head Start, Region 8, improved quality of education, and businesses, the business park, home-based businesses. It was a great time, and I thought it was very informative. What became very apparent, and along with this, you were all provided, and the participants in the forum will also be provided with the 11-page that I shared with you a couple weeks ago of what, there's common themes in each question. And I think the common themes are poverty, substance abuse, communication, housing, and transportation. I mean, I think it boils down to those things. So how do we address poverty and drug abuse and transportation and housing and everything we need to address? And some of these were social issues that honestly, they're societal. And how do you address, how do you, as a town, address some of the societal changes that have happened? I don't know how. One of the answers was kids are addicted to their cell phones. I gotta tell you, I'm addicted to my cell phone. I hate to say it, but I am addicted to my cell phone. I don't go any place without it. That's how we've evolved, and I don't know how we fix that. So some of them we can't fix, but some of them we can. And I think one of the biggest things that came out of this, from the inception of this idea, I think a couple of things are very clear to me, and I think Bob and Jan specifically, because we've been chatting with the YMCA in Lincoln, we will not be able to do this alone if we're going to make changes. And I believe, and I take a lot of heat for this, and I'm going to say it publicly so everybody can come and yell at me. I have committees that truly believe that what's going to change this town are, you know, new businesses, people moving in, how we get our energy, different things that all sound great. And I believe that they all are a component of helping the town. But I truly believe, and I believe this from sitting in that office and listening to people, the thing that will make the most difference and that will affect the greatest change, so from a socioeconomic standpoint, from an economic development standpoint, is we have to deal with the issues and the elephants in the room, and that's poverty and drug and alcohol substance abuse, and providing services to those most in need. People aren't going to want to come to a town, and this isn't any knock on the school system, it's not. But if your school ratings aren't great, families are going to be hard pressed. It doesn't matter how affordable it is to live here, and it's very, for middle class families, it's an affordable town. There's housing stock available that is nice housing stock that is affordable. They're not gonna come unless the schools improve, and the schools can't improve because the teachers can only do so much. And if that's not continued either after school, in the home, or some type of a program, you're not gonna have that success. In order for kids to be successful in school, they need the support system. How do we as a community promote that? And I know I'm getting way into things that most town managers would stay away from, but the survival and the economic survival of Waldoboro, I believe, is deeply rooted in what the results were of this. And we have to fix it, and we have to address it. I'm not going to get a Walmart to come here, and I'm going to tell everybody why right now, because I hear this all the time. We need box stores, we need Trader Joe's, we need Walmart. No, we don't have the infrastructure for it. I don't have the money to build the infrastructure. And even if I had a TIF, I wouldn't have the money to build the infrastructure to get a Walmart or a Trader Joe's or a Kohl's. So we have to look at how we want the town to grow. And we look back on all the money that was spent on all the reports that have sat on shelves. It's small businesses, it's home-based businesses, it's making the town more business-friendly, which was a big thing also, if you read the results. How do we make this town more business-friendly? But in the end, you're not gonna wanna have people come unless we improve what we have. And that starts with taking some major steps and how we partner to do that. One of the other things was there's nothing to do in town. And I'm not saying that we, you know, something was said to me the other day, well, you just want to put a treatment center in. No, that's not what we're talking about here. We're offering alternatives to lifestyles. We're going to educate people, hopefully. And the best way to do that is to partner with organizations. The YMCA is one of those organizations, and I know in Waldoboro, I will have 5 people tomorrow walk in my office and tell me the story of the YMCA in Waldoboro, and they will tell me that I don't know my history well, and what am I doing? And I'm going to say, the past is the past, and tomorrow we have to move forward, and we're at that point.
It's a new why over there.
It's a new why, and honestly, I'm going to say it, and I will take the fall for it. There were mistakes made on both sides of that. It was the town's fault for some of the stuff that they did, and that's the truth. And it was the why. So everybody is equally guilty of it not working. It's not just one side versus the other. And I know I'm going to get a lot of heat for that, but from somebody coming from the outside and looking in and going over it all, there was enough fingers to point both ways. So we're going to get over that, and we're going to move forward. Right now they have availability in their camp for their scholarship money, free money to send our kids from Waldoboro to the Y. We should be taking advantage of that. We're in their service area. It's not costing you a dime. Just send your kids, you know, we put it out.
It's the Lake Knickerbocker.
It's one of this, there's a lot of the camps there.
Yeah.
They're great for these kids. So we're in their service area, we should use them. We have to partner with them. Lincoln Health is another, Penn Bay, which is now Maine Health, under the same umbrella. we are going to have wonderful opportunities with them on how we provide services to our residents, health residents. Head Start and Early Start, one of the big things that came out of this is a lack of good daycare and after-school care, engaging after-school care. Not that the school doesn't provide something in the building in front of the Miller School, but we're talking about ages and giving kids something to do. You know, when I was in high school, you know, we were always involved. I was always involved either in an after-school sport or an after-school activity. I hear chess was also big back when I was in school. I never learned, I wasn't smart enough to play that. Some people are, some people aren't. But things like that we can do easily. You know, we might have the opportunity to do some great things. Well, not might, but we will have the opportunity to do great things. If we partner with the right people, though there's funding out there that we can do something, I think we need to start looking at where we could do a center. That was a big thing, that there's a need for a community center. Marcus is getting in his results from the survey that he sent out. I think he's up to about well over 300 now, which is pretty good for a survey in Waldoboro. And the common theme is a community center, some type of a gathering place. Again, I don't want it to be so focused on sports as it is teaching people how to improve their lives. And one of those ways, and we do have a high poverty rate, obviously, in Waldoboro, is through a community navigator, which is what the Booth Bay Regional BRCRC does. And that can be funded by a grant, but I think we have to, one of the first things to do, aside from better publicize our partners, number one, I think a community navigator in this community is needed desperately. When somebody comes in and needs help, there needs to be someone who's trained, who knows when you're talking to somebody, we're not just taking Philbrook funds and throwing them at the person. You know, we see in the Philbrook Fund repeat and repeat. But what are we doing? And it's great that CHIP fixes houses and we reimburse CHIP, but if the same thing's coming up again and again and again, we've got to break that cycle. So these people need help, and they need thoughtful help, and they need the right help. And that's what this community navigator can do. So if there's a drug and substance abuse problem, they can direct them to the right resources. If they need childcare, they can direct them to the right resources. If they need elder care, which is huge. I mean, and that's another thing that came out of that. It's not just kids, you know, we have to figure out about how better to age our seniors in place. So there's so much here that we have to tackle. But I think there's some things that we can do. And communication, that was the other thing. I think I communicate so well, but I really don't. I've learned that. Thoughtful communication that is improved and a central location for information is so paramount. And just even in the results of the survey, lots of telltale things come out. People, when they're anonymous, write amazing things. It's even better than Facebook because they're saying what they truly think. And what they truly think is we don't communicate well. And as much as I've tried to be transparent and I've tried to be here and I try to be extremely vocal, there are still people who think they can't talk to me. Or they're not welcome at meetings, and that puzzled me tremendously, where this came from, this notion that people aren't welcome at our meetings, because they are welcome. So I just want to put that out to TV land. If you're sitting at home and watching on TV because you think you're not welcome here, you're welcome. Come on in, sit down. I had a man today walk into my office and spend 45 minutes explaining everything that I've done wrong for 2 years. And one of it happened to be, you know, the fire truck. You know, I bought that fire truck. Well, sir, if you bought a new one when it was only $400,000, we wouldn't be buying one now. You know, I'm sorry, but sometimes things like that have to be said. But feel free. I take the criticism well. I want to hear what people are thinking. I may not agree with it, and you might get a little pushback, but we need to hear those things. You shouldn't just have to write it on an anonymous piece of paper. You should be able to come in and tell me. So come in and tell me. So I think those are the things that we need to focus on, is ways to fix what we have. And I think partnership is key, communication is key. This is just the beginning. I view this, and I know we have our giant Julie list, but this is the most important work I will ever do in my career. This is absolutely the most important work I will ever do in my career. When I took this job, it was between, I thought about, well, should I go do a nonprofit? That might be something I can do with the rest of my life to make it worthwhile. And then I interviewed here and I said, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life to make it worthwhile. So I think this needs to be my focus for the next 5 years. The things that are on this list, I'm not just saying just building something, I'm talking about fixing the problems and addressing the concerns, because this was truly a swath of the community. It really was, and that's the thing that most impressed me, is there were people there who people just didn't even believe I had in a room talking. And I think that was very important. So what I'd like to ask from you is permission to release these results to all the attendees, both the summary and the findings. To all the attendees, I'll email them that. Bob, Jan, and I will again be reconvening with Lincoln Health and the YMCA. I also have a meeting set up with Head Start and Early Start representatives from Community Action. We talked about something as simple as, how do you reach people who might use Lincoln Health services? Just where do you go? Like, that was the thing that the communications director at our last meeting said at Lincoln Health was, I don't even know how to get in touch with the people who might need our services. And it was interesting because he's like, a lot of them are fishermen. How do you find the fishermen? And
Question.
how do you find the fishermen?
Yeah.
Well, I have 2 fishermen. That's how I find fishermen, through these 2 gentlemen here, is I find fishermen. But the people who need the services and how to get them to them are, most of the time, healthcare is overwhelming to people. People won't go to, if they don't have healthcare, they don't want to be a burden, so they don't go anywhere. They're not getting treated, and by the time that Maine Health gets to them, it's sometimes too late, or it's extremely costly. So how do we get those words out? And I think that's part of it. And I'm very passionate about this, so I would like your permission to release this. I'd like to have a group, I'd like to actually have the rep, the head of the BRCRC come to one of our meetings. I think it would be great for you to hear her talk to you about what they do. Our model should be that model because it's been so successful. But I think we have to come to grips with the fact that at some point we have to actually fund that position. I think that position is crucial. And I think we can do it with a grant, but we have to be aware that at some point that grant funding might end, and that's a position worth keeping. It's a position that is needed. Is it worth that for this community? And it is worth that, because we have people in our community suffering and they don't know how to get to the services. And I know that might not be a palatable thing. I can hear certain people in my budget committee now yelling at me. I can feel it. But if you understand how we need to break the cycle, it makes sense. And I hope you're all on board with this, because anybody can build a park, but you can't often get the opportunity to save and change lives. And the 5 of you right now, and whoever in the next 5 years sits in these chairs, you have an opportunity to change lives and make a difference. And politics aside, whatever happens, that's something very rare that many people don't get to do. And I hope you grab onto it and run with it, because this is a game changer in people's lives, and that's what we have to be. And I am off my soapbox officially.
So to help you with that, I think that all them people's probably waiting for these results.
They are.
They are. They want
They are.
they want follow-up.
They do.
They
want
really
another
do
meeting.
want follow-up.
They want another meeting. They do.
Oh, yeah, that was clear.
I've never been involved in something like this where the weeks that followed meetings have been set up and taken, and phone calls and text messages about, hey, I'm excited about this. How can we help you? I mean, I'm in Damariscotta having dinner, and I'm having people stop and say, I was at your meeting, it was the best thing. When my daughter, who works in the education field at a state level, comes home to pick up her baby and says to me, so, some of my former coworkers were at your forum. And now they know why I'm crazy, because I'm your daughter. But the enthusiasm has been great, and I just think it was actually probably one of the highlights, top 3 highlights of my career. So, and it's been a long career. I'm like old and getting gray and tired and about to be put out the pasture, so.
We'll just have to keep you going.
You're gonna keep me going.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing. So.
I wish we had that, we have a flyer from the BRCRC that just, it's, the diagram just shows how a navigator, how can pull things together. And I thought the diagram was really wonderful. I thought it spoke.
And most of these
spoke well.
resources that I'm talking about, the investment from the town would be into the navigator. It's not gonna be into the resources. The resources are already out there. It's just
How
nobody
to get to
knows the
them and use
resources.
them.
I connected with somebody from Veterans Affairs who, because I read the Lincoln County News, Alex, this is a compliment coming, and I said, oh, this is a local woman at Veterans Affairs. I need to connect with her. So off we go. And she came to the meeting and she was excited and she called me and we followed up and she's like, so if you have people in need that are for veteran services, please let me know. Well, one of our own employees had issues and I connected them and now his issues are being resolved. And, so other people have popped up. People unexpectedly popped up. I was doing something totally different and then got, hey, this is what I'm experiencing. And within 5 minutes, that person had contact information. They did. And a resident in town who in the past 3 weeks had 2 requests of me that I was able to help. And that means something when you can actually help somebody who asks you something. But there's just so many webs. It's so many webs, and that's the problem. And like Daryl said, Daryl is not, he doesn't know all those resources, and he can't because
It's not his job.
It's not his job. I mean, it is his job, the Philbrook Fund, but it's not his job to know all those resources. The police don't know all those resources. And, I also wanted to just mention, we had an absolutely wonderful 2 sessions of questions and answers for our police chief last Wednesday. I could not attend the evening session, but I could attend the morning session, and the morning session was excellent.
Yeah, so was the evening session.
And I'm sure the evening session was just as excellent. But, John knows what the issues are. Everybody knows what the issues are. We just have to confront the issue and figure out a way to find them. And John and I are going to go meet with the chief in Booth Bay and have a really interesting conversation about how they've done things. And the proof is in the pudding. Things are improving there. And like I said, it's not everybody's doing their best, but we have to figure out how to help that cycle along. Anyway, I'm done.
Thank you.
It's amazing.
Well done.
Comment? Citizens comment, out of order, please.
Of course.
You could be out of order, John.
All right, well, I'll be glad to go up there if you'd like.
Yeah.
As you know, I've spent a lot of time running a company for 30 years, and I have employees. And trying to get everybody to communicate on difficult issues was my biggest challenge. And I ended up hiring an outside facilitator who was available to me to have team-building events with myself and the employees, so we could get used to the idea of dealing with painful issues between us and having discussions about things that are difficult as a group or as smaller groups, and that helped tremendously. Now, that's a Silicon Valley culture, by the way. The companies that we all know well in the Valley were doing this back then, and they did them in a big way.
And they had retreats for that purpose. I came here to Maine, worked for the state of Maine for 3 years, and they had them going on there, by the way, and I was very happy to see that, especially in the technology sector where they had a major disconnect, if you all recall, about 2004, 2005, when they spent a fortune on a computer and it didn't work to run the state. And then to get all of those issues on the table amongst all the people. I wasn't part of that, but I was a part of the process because I'd done it myself. And I'm here just to encourage the people here in this town to want to come here and have discussions with people that are sometimes more difficult than have ever been talked about here in a meeting, without having some disconnects due to inability to deal with difficult issues in a public setting. So that's what I would like to leave you guys with. Thank you.
Thank you.
John.
You can have that.
Thank you.
So any more comments or discussion on that issue? Okay. Intertidal loan, zone, not intertidal loan, intertidal zone legislation.
It's the banker coming out.
Yeah, sorry, it is. It's a Freudian slip. This is really about LD 1323, and I'm glad that Abden and Clint are part of this conversation, because this is something that I think affects them directly in many ways. It all came about because of the Supreme Court decision that basically prevented people from going into the intertidal zone to harvest seaweed. The history is it goes way back. It goes way back into the 1640s, when navigation, fishing, and fowling were allowed under the Massachusetts Bay Authority along the coast of Maine. No matter who owned the land, you had a right to fish, fowl, and navigate. You could take your boat in there, you could go hunting for birds, and you could fish. And that's carried over for almost 350 years. The problem arose when somebody somewhere said to somebody cutting seaweed, I own that intertidal area, you can't be here. You can't take that seaweed out. And people have been doing it for generations. So it ended up in court, and the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the property owner. I think they did that because the law is the law, but also I think they did it because they wanted to throw the issue back to the legislature. The legislature needs to revisit this and adopt a comprehensive approach to how you deal with rights in the intertidal zone. And that's what LD 1323 does. It doesn't allow certain things. You can't go pick up glass and pick up sand and stuff. You can't desecrate the area. But it would allow gathering seaweed. It would allow, of course, harvesting clams, and they give it a very broad term. Let me see if I can find what that term is. Marine, I think they call it marine resources.
Marine organisms.
Marine organs, yeah.
Organism.
Yep, pretty broad term. And it opens up that intertidal area. Why is that important to Waldoboro? Because we, as a town, have an economy that is highly dependent on that intertidal zone. We have businesses in town that depend upon the resources in that area. And it needs to be very clear in the law what rights people have and what rights they don't have in terms of access to those resources. So that's kind of why I wanted to have this on the agenda tonight, to talk about, and perhaps, as a board, if we all agree, lend support to the effort to clarify the situation so that we know what the rules are again,
Is this-
and we can move forward.
Senator Dow's bill.
Yeah,
Because there was two bills that day when we was up there.
this is the Dow bill.
Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember which one was which, so. Yep.
Who's this Hickman?
He's on the committee. This is his revision from the original proposal that came through. This is far more comprehensive in approach than the one that was originally put up. And I don't know whether Dana and Jeff Evangelos I don't know where they stand on this, specifically on this version of it. But having read through it,
This all seems pretty good.
yeah, it's comprehensive,
Yeah.
it clarifies, it gives authority to the state agency that's responsible for the particular activity, they issue the licenses. And by issuing the licenses, is it correct to happen that they would also have a regulatory authority over how things are handled in that
Yes.
area, given the marine organism they're dealing
It-
with?
Yeah, it depends on what the, you know, it's like Waldeboro really, Waldeboro has authority over the shellfish, but the state oversees our regulations.
Yep.
You know, like lobsters and stuff like that, that's all state.
I know alewives are handled pretty much the same way. We have
Yep,
to exercise our rights to
Yep.
them.
Yep, yeah, the state just
Under state
oversees
authority.
our management plan and stuff like that, and how we harvest.
Can you guys explain, some of this looks highlighted, some of it looks like it's highlighted and crossed out.
I think that's the change.
So the crossed out, that means,
It's
This highlighted
being
part, like,
eliminated.
so
That
that's
means it's
coming
been
out of this.
eliminated, Yeah.
But on the front, it's not crossed out.
It's underlined.
Okay, like this one right here.
Mhm.
Okay, I don't see that.
Hard to read, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah, I
like
didn't know
shaded
what,
over.
how that was different than the other highlight.
I think it's just somebody highlighting, when you're reading a book and you highlight an important
Right, so this
passage.
is in,
This is highlighted.
that's in, but this that's highlighted is out.
If it's crossed out, it's out. Yeah. So 576, section 576 is all crossed out, except for the part that says municipalities may exercise their police powers to adopt ordinances, et cetera. Section 5 is crossed out.
Right.
This looks like this is the big thing, the definition of the organism.
Yep. Yep. So basically what, and that's how you perceive that as being, is it was kicked back to the legislature to actually make
That's how
a-
I perceive it, yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Because I thought it was in there, and according to some of the people that I talked to that looked at the main laws, it actually wasn't in there. It was just perceived that it was in there.
right,
And after investigating it, it actually wasn't clearly defined.
clearly defined.
Yep. That's what I get out of it. It's good that they come up with something to make sure.
Yes, this is good.
Yeah, it is, it's really good.
Isn't the high water mark, doesn't that belong to the river? From the high water mark out?
Yep, it's supposed to look,
Then how can they take that to court and give that, somebody was taking seaweed from in front of that person's house, right?
Yeah,
How can the courts award the homeowner that seaweed is theirs when it isn't actually because of the high water mark, anything?
because some deeds read they own to the low water mark.
Mm-hmm.
And in Maine, it's inconsistent.
yeah. It all depends what
My
your deed
deed doesn't
says.
tell me where I own to in terms of high tide or low tide.
So
I have
each
no idea.
town is different?
So each property could be different.
Property.
Yeah.
Each property.
It's just the way it's been, Katie. It's been that way for 350 years. It's chaos.
Yeah.
Well,
And
I
so
hope
they're
they got
trying
it
to-
straightened out.
You're trying to
Well, I
straighten
think
it
that's
out.
what this is trying to
This is,
do.
yeah,
this come from down east, a lot of it, because there's seaweed companies out of Canada that are harvesting a lot of seaweed down there, and the people down there are very upset about it.
Mm.
So, it's not so much this area, it's more down east.
But how can they do that? I mean, the seaweed belongs to the water.
Well, it was an interesting, I have to say, the 2 hours that we waited to testify and couldn't, more was done to be educational in the hallway, standing, and I'm not just saying this because you're my boss, but standing, one of my 5 bosses, standing in the hallway and listening to the people who came up to Abden to talk about this was more enlightening than any discussion I'd had on it prior. It really was.
Oh, he knew. He knows this stuff.
Yeah, but I know the people that know that stuff as well. you
Right,
know.
so it was very enlightening to be in the hallway. It was probably a very valuable 2 hours of education on a subject I didn't know much about, because the perspectives from people, you never know, and I forget the gentleman's name,
Dan Harrington.
yes.
Yeah, his family owns a worm dealership in Woolwich, which wouldn't think it was a big deal, but they packed their worms in rockweed to ship them. Well, this affects
And you just
that.
don't realize that, and but even the other legislators that came up to have a conversation with him was very interesting to hear. Like he says, watching the sausage being made, I got to see the sausage being made. Very different. So, it was enlightening.
I guess I'll have to go into the hallway with you and find out.
You do, I'm telling you, you gotta go in the hallway.
You'd be surprised how much is done actually.
In the hallway.
In the hallway than in the
Yeah.
hearing room.
So is there anything we need to do with this?
Well, I was hoping we could send a letter to Dana and Jeff Evangelos expressing our support for this effort.
Okay. Have Julie just craft up something? We'll sign it off, or whatever.
Whatever. I don't mind. And is it okay if either Abden or Bob testifies? Because we normally
Bob should
want
be,
permission.
Should be Abden.
or whatever.
Should be both of you.
Yeah,
We will,
probably together.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion?
I just got one discussion.
Yeah.
I remember, this was probably, I was digging clams, so it was probably late 60s, early 70s, down in Bremen. Dr. Homburger owned all of Crabapple Cove. And he owned that all the way to the low water mark, and he kicked people out of there for
Oh,
digging.
jeez.
That was taking other people's clams, I remember that. And his deed said that, he owned that to the low water mark when the tide was up.
It's amazing. I know in New
Completely
Jersey,
crazy.
we had a similar situation where everything was a little off. And to this day, they're still afraid about some of the beachfront, but the DEP actually went in finally on what you would consider the inland bays and basically said, okay, we own everything the water touches, but we will let you rent the land underneath the water for a fee. And they charged a licensing fee for you. So every dock you had, every mooring you had, you paid a fee for, because they owned the water and you were buying the air rights above the water. It was, and they owned, not technically the water, I guess, but the ground and then the
Submerged
water.
land.
It was very interesting how they eventually resolved that. And there's, to this day, they are still, for the beachfront owners, some of the beachfront owners are still,
I like the simplicity of this approach.
I thought that was
Has
really
George-
nice.
George seen this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
He has.
George,
Yeah.
and Mr. Morse.
There's one other anecdote before we vote. I know somebody who was kayaking out in Sampson Cove at high tide. The landowner came running after her saying, she was taking pictures of a bald eagle. I said, get out of here, you can't be on the, and she was on the water in her kayak, saying, you can't be on here, get out of here, you don't belong in this place. And it just doesn't make sense for people to have that kind of,
Power.
yeah.
And she lived there.
And she
She lives there.
Yes, you heard about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Everybody heard
we know
about that
what we're
one.
talking
Yeah.
about.
Friend.
That's
So-
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor? Okay. Thank you.
I have a question, please. Is the motion just to send a letter to Dana Dow and Jeff Evangelos, or also to have Bob and Abden?
It's to authorize us to testify as well.
The motion as well. Oh, thank you.
Okay? Special event detail policy for police.
I have to apologize, Tanya and I'm gonna take the fall for the boo-boo. We thought we had already sent this out once. Did everybody get a copy? If not, here's the written copy.
Print
You
it
might
off.
wanna just look at it and,
I've got it.
look at it and we can put it off to the next meeting. But
Good idea.
it's a good thing. It's.
I never heard of
and
this
it's-
before.
Well, no, but when we get asked to do certain things, funerals, special events at maybe like Topsail Farms or something, it really shouldn't be on the taxpayer. This doesn't apply to like the things we normally do, like at the school, dances, sporting events, things like that. which is included and has always been paid for separately, and it would be less money for
What
them.
about what we had yesterday in the parade?
Any public event like that we would normally participate in, no, but this is above and beyond. So if somebody wants to have police traffic control at a wedding,
Okay,
something like that, it just makes sense if we have to call in somebody and it compensates us for our administrative time also, so
You want that on a future agenda?
next meeting would be
Okay.
great.
Yeah, I had a few questions, so I just asked them and got the answers.
Oh.
It's very short and sweet.
So is there a motion to table this one until the next meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor? Table, okay.
And we're gonna have to table the next one too.
Move table.
Oh, he left.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Is there a second to table?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Gonna be a quick meeting tonight.
Yep,
The
Pounds of clams to pass.
sick bank policy.
yeah. That was included in my
the
town
packet.
manager's
Yeah, I found
packet.
Rip in the morning.
Did anybody have any questions about that?
No, I think it's excellent.
I do too. I love the way it's set up. It's volunteer.
Yeah, I like that.
It's just reciprocal. It's really good.
Good.
Is there a motion
Between
to
Thursday
accept the policy?
and Monday.
I move that we accept the
Is
policy.
there a second?
second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Well, is there a motion to, we don't have an executive session tonight, so is there a
So
motion
moved.
to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Adjourn.
Until we have things to do.
Can't imagine.
I'd like to be in bed before 1 o'clock tonight.
Yeah. I last about 8 or 8:30.
It was 3:30 yesterday morning, I got to bed, was back up at 7, get to bed at 1 o'clock this
Some
morning.
of the things that you
I
people
will
have